This is being broadcast to the world. So like 2 people out there. But I guess it's being recorded, isn't it? That's funny. Look at my face. Oh, there you go. It's okay? Wow, this is amazing. Well, hello all. I'm back. I'm still here. But I was falling asleep during David's presentation. I feel so bad. And it's not because it wasn't an exciting presentation. It's because I had no idea what he was saying in Dutch. Sorry. So it was tough. I'm sorry. But it was fun. Everybody else was awake. That's all that matters. What? Blame it on the lunch. You, sir, I can't remember. You do reporting or something? What are you using Excel for again?
Our company develops software for the financial industry.
Oh.
Reporting is
part of it.
It's a section we haven't been focusing on enough.
Darn right. Darn right. Okay. Time to get back at it. Okay, guys. Most of you were here earlier when I said what Power BI was. You seem to know what Power BI is. You seem to know what Power BI is. And what about you? Have you been, is this your first visit?
No.
Oh, you, really? I'm sorry. You look like everybody else, I guess. Sorry about that. Geez, that's embarrassing. Say, I've never seen you before. I've been here all the time. Whoops. And it's being broadcast. Oh. Okay, good. Smile. So anyway, guys, what we're going to do here is pull together what we were talking about earlier. Is this whole idea of Power BI as a report tool for Excel. And this is actually kind of a radical opinion. And I don't know why it's a radical opinion, because it makes perfect sense to me. Because Power BI is basically the child of Power View, which was originally in Excel. And Excel has needed a way to deliver content to a web-based interface for distribution forever, because sending spreadsheets around is just not happening, right? And copying and pasting charts into PowerPoint sucks, right? Okay, it's just too limited, right? That's a technical term. It sucks. And when Power BI came along, I looked at it and I said, this is it. I'm ready. We now have the reporting tool. And a resounding silence came from Microsoft and from everybody else. Because you have the Power BI guys who think that they've, found the cure to cancer and peace in the Middle East. That's what their product is, right? And the Excel guys saying, well, no, I don't, I'm Excel, I don't want. And so there isn't this synergy, although they say there is, but that's bullshit. There's not synergy between those camps. And then there's the ego things, right? The Power BI guys think they're special and the Excel guys think they're special. Nobody's special. But the fact is that I believe that Power BI is the reporting tool for Excel. The other thing to realize is Power BI is not a query tool. It's an analytical tool, they say, but they don't say this, but it is also a reporting tool. But it's designed for aggregated information. Now, sometimes the business process is small enough that you can have granular, the lowest level of granularity, and you can show it in Power BI, but mostly not. If you have data, of a good example that I always use is truckloads of coal. If you had 150 truckloads of coal or 200 truckloads in a day, I don't care about 200 truckloads. I care about the whole amount of coal shipped on that day. One line or 3 or 4 lines instead of 200 lines. This is what you should be doing in Power BI. Where's a good way to create aggregations like that? Excel, right? And other reasons why Excel is great. The other thing that most companies are more interested in standard reporting than in analytics. Although they talk about all the cool stuff. They want to do, machine learning, and they want to do automatic forecasting, and they want to do analytics. Well, reporting is analytics, but reporting says, what have we done? What have we done compared to what we said we were going to do? And that's what I call reporting. And I believe that's the largest percentage of the use of this technology. So that I believe Excel is always going to be the largest creator of content for Power BI. So what are your Excel reporting pain points? The big one is distribution. How do you have this huge model that comes up to certain conclusions based on information that you have accumulated over a period of time? How do you distribute it, right? One way is you send this huge big spreadsheet around, and then you have a problem because the people at the other end have to know how to use that spreadsheet without breaking it, without stepping on stuff, without deleting formulas. You know how imaginative idiot users can be, right? Okay. So what you really want to do is just give them something so they can't break it and they can get the information they want. That's what I talk about, target audience limitations. And I make fun of them in a lighthearted way. I have total respect for users. But the fact of the matter is, users are users. They have a job to do. They're not tech weenies like us, right? And they can't be expected to have all those skills. It's true. And you also want to model your Excel for maximum productivity and efficiency. And that's something that I'm going to talk about that's going to be driven as a core of this. So Excel's data is what I believe Power BI is for. Just don't let anybody tell you differently. So I'll be detailing the plumbing for using Excel as a source for Power BI. And we're going to go to the next slide. I'm clicking. You had this problem where your slide wouldn't go ahead? There it goes. Oh, well, thank you for joining us, Robert. What we have here is what I call the Abels, which is kind of an English word. It doesn't really work. It's not a real word, but reliable. Get it? The Abels. Edit able. Repeat able. Okay. These are the kinds of things we're looking for in a reporting system. Scale able. Within realistic limits, right? Like there is this absurdity of big data, which is all well and good, but big data is this little slice of the business compared to all the other people who need this technology. But it's cool. So that's all anybody wants to talk about. What I like to talk about is, I literally use the phrase, not so big data. Right, that's what I specialize in. Auditable. Auditing is really important. One of the problems with Power BI is that you can whip together all this stuff and publish it. Whoa, what did you just put up there? What did you just publish, right? You weren't supposed to publish that, right? Or, it's crap, what you published is wrong, right? Or, why are you publishing that? You're not supposed to do that. That's not your job. So what we've got here is the potential to get some control on what is going out the door in the form of Power BI. Securable. Although I don't know if that's really that's a word, but not used very often. Securable means, you want only the people who should see this information will actually be allowed to see that information. And that's where Power BI can be very handy. Governable, right? Governance, the whole idea of what information should or shouldn't be published in what realm of the organization, or worse, outside of the organization. And consistentable. It's not an able, but anyway, consistency. And this is a really important thing. I remember 1,000 years ago, I'm in the controller's department of a major brewing company in Canada, the major brewing company in Canada. And the financial manager, who's still a friend of mine to this day, the chief, he wasn't the chief CIO, he was the head manager of IT, comes to me, and I taught them how to do pretty pictures in Lotus 123 always. I don't know how many go back. You probably go back that far, right? Which was the first graphical thing. And he showed me all these pages that they had printed based on me teaching them. So maybe this was my fault. Every page was different. The font was different. The font size was different. Everything on every page was different. I said, what are you planning on doing this? Oh, this is going to the board this afternoon. No, it isn't. It's not going to the board. What do you mean? He says, they're all different. They're all formatted. It looks like shit. And he goes, oh, it just completely didn't realize that. And it has to be consistent looking. You have to control the look and feel. Power BI is a great way to do that so that the visualization is consistent. But you also want to have consistency in the process that leads to the data. So what are you going to look at? How Excel interacts with Power BI. How to prep your spreadsheets for publishing, how and where to stage your Excel data for Power BI to consume, how to manage the auto refreshing, that's really important, how to filter your data to selected audiences should time allow, and how to integrate your PBI data back into Excel. How's that for a cool idea? Actually, from Excel up to Power BI, then back into Excel. You go, why would you do that? It's a great idea. So this is the stuff I showed you earlier. I'm not going to show you that again. Okay, so let's look at Power BI, how it interacts with Power BI. It needs tables of data, period. So if I go here and I open Power BI Desktop, what I've got here is a series of tables. And the evidence, if I go here, is that they all look like this. Here's one set of data. Here's another set of data. Here's a big set of data. It's columnar data with unique headings across the top, with no blanks, just standard tableized data like would come out of any relational database. What does Excel look like? I'm going to go back to 2013. It's easier. I live in 2013. How many of you use 2016? Yeah, well, yeah. But you still like 2013? I don't know. I still like 2013. But I didn't say that. Oh, I just said it over the internet. Oh, Jesus. Too late. Too late. Yeah, world knows. The idea is, look at what we got here. We have tables, right? We have the ability to create tables, which is, I remember I said Lotus 1, 2, 3 in the long day. The 3 was for the databases because they realized that tables were the deal. So when you look at Power BI, because it came from an Excel environment, the first thing they did was make it so you can import Excel data into it. So if I go like this, and I go and have a brand new sheet. By the way, Powered by BI Desktop loads very slowly, but it doesn't really matter because it's just a development tool. I mean, I don't really care that it loads slowly. If my users had to wait every time they called it up, I wouldn't be happy. But it loads slowly because there's a lot. Hey, funny story. I wrote an application in 1985. How many of you were not born then? You were born then? Just? Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, yeah. It was how to change his dirty diaper. Yeah. But what it was a spreadsheet in Lotus that did analysis, and the report took 45 minutes, the overall report for this thing to calculate. There are still people who use that application written in Lotus sitting in a corner office, two places that still use it because nobody's been able to write an application that works as well as this. When you run it now, and this last time I tested it was like 5 years ago, it's like a second and a half to do the same report that used to take 45 minutes. Incredible. But anyway, so here we go. We want to get data, and there's, you know, this is a problem that I don't know if it's only Microsoft, but since I only work in the Microsoft realm, it's only Microsoft to me. There's too many ways to skin a cat. Look at this guy. Are you eating your banana out yet? What? Cuss Crunches? Christmas cookies. Not Hopus? Oh, okay. All right. This guy always has a banana in the middle of our sessions. Oh, yeah. He goes, banana time. So anyway, I digress. I want to get data into this. And the problem that they have sometimes is they have too many ways to do the same thing. Part of it's because they think of new ways to do it, but they have to leave the old way in. I don't know why they do it here, but you can, in this, you can go File, Import, and you can import, for example, Excel contents. Don't do that, because it will import data into Power BI once. And every time you want to refresh it, you have to import again in Power BI Desktop, and then republish the Power BI desktop file to Power BI and reconfigure it in Power BI. You'd have to do that every single time, which means you can't build it and give it to a user and say, just do this, right? Second of all, you can then go get data instead. What's the difference between file import and get data? I don't know conceptually, but I know that what it really amounts to. You really want to use get data. So I don't know what file import's all about. But here's a funny one. If you want to import Excel, you don't want to go import Excel, because the Excel mechanism is multi steps, and it's not refreshable. The result you get is a one-time thing. It comes in one time and that's it. To do it again, you got to bring it in all over again. You can't set it to auto refresh. You understand what I mean by auto refresh? So that the user would say save the spreadsheet and it would automatically refresh every 3 hours, right? That's the way it has to be. If you use it this way with Excel, you can sort of make that work, but it's about 10 steps long. What you really want to do is go get data web, which is really strange. Now, the reason why is because your Excel data has to live outside the firewall. If you want to open Excel data that's on your desktop in your office and use that as a source for Power BI, once again, one time, you can't refresh it because it has to go, because PowerBI.com doesn't know squat about your internal network. So it cannot map itself back through the firewall, through your everything, to your desktop to find this Excel file again. So what they've done is they've come up with this concept that you can put Excel files in OneDrive, they keep saying. OneDrive. They just drive that into you, OneDrive, which is living outside the firewall. It's living up in the cloud. And so they made it so that you can use what amounts to a REST connection to say, reach into the SharePoint, pull in the information I want. Beautiful. Into OneDrive, I said. But the fact is that OneDrive is actually SharePoint. It's actually a subset of SharePoint. If you look the URL for OneDrive, it's SharePoint dot, in my case, Personal Logic Associates, blah, 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 blah. So it's really SharePoint. The problem with using OneDrive is it's tied to a single individual. You can share it and let people come in, but the problem is if I leave the company or if I'm fired, or the old thing, if I get promoted, get another job, retire, or die, then they're screwed, right? Because my account goes away and the whole thing goes down. You know what the answer is? Put it in SharePoint. With Office 365, everybody gets access to SharePoint in the cloud. It's just free, right? And you can create a departmental SharePoint site and put all of your Excel files there. So that's what I do. And because it's a SharePoint site, to connect to the files in there, you have to enter the URL. So this dialog box that comes up here eventually says URL, right? So you type in the URL path to your Excel file that's inside your SharePoint folder. Now, admittedly, you have to have access to it on your machine. So you have to have an account with with SharePoint in order to do it. And if you're already logged on, it'll just open the file. If you're not, it'll ask you to log in, and you log in, and then you'll have access to the file. And what it'll do is it will remember, and you will make sure of this, that it remembers your login, and therefore your rights will be adopted by Power BI to reach into that SharePoint folder and pull it out. So it'll refresh in the background using your rights. Do you understand what I mean? Because otherwise, how is it going to have the rights to connect into it? You tell it, this is who I am, use my rights to refresh it over and over again. You should, if you can, use a service account. Something that an administrator would have handled to. Absolutely. Because if you log on as your own, then theoretically it could be a problem. And if the guy quits, blah, blah, blah. So you're absolutely right. So here's the deal. How do we handle this? And this is where it's interesting. I'm going to open a file, which will come up. And this will, let's talk about this. Yeah, that's perfect. This is a big spreadsheet. And it is a combination of data that's generated in the spreadsheet and data that's pulled in from a data query from outside the spreadsheet. So it's a perfect mix of the real world, right? Data from the spreadsheet, blah, blah, blah. That's what everybody wants, not just from one source. You know how, what they want to do in Power BI is they want you to go directly to Azure, which of course they want to sell Azure. That's their whole thing, right? So they want you to go to Azure and pull in data from Azure. Well, not all the data that's going to be used in Power BI is in a database. A lot of it is in spreadsheets, whether you like it or not. And a bunch of it that could come from databases, the user has access to it because they're behind the firewall, they're sitting in their desktop, they have access to the internal data warehouse. If they are using it outside and using a data gateway to come in to get their data directly, they're going to have a lot of security issues convincing IT that it's okay to come through the firewall and connect to the corporate data. Plus, they have to understand there's all kinds of crap involved. But when you're sitting in Excel, just like this morning, I connected to an Excel file. I could connect to a SQL table. I could connect to an Access database. Where's there, okay? I could connect to an Azure database in the cloud. In fact, I have an example I'll show you of that. So the bottom line is you use Excel as your aggregator. That's my argument. And that's what we're going to show here. So I have this big spreadsheet, which actually has mine data. If any of you have seen me present, I've used this example before of this mining company, which is really an American mining company, but I've changed the names to a whole bunch of Australian mines so that, you know, I've sanitized it, right? So if you look at it, oh, geez, he's showing real information. No, I'm not. So what we've got here, let me delete this, is I have a bunch of data which is coming in from Azure. And what I've done at the far right, I've added 5 sheets. And this is the main sheet here. It's called PBI_main. And in it, I have a target as to where I want to send my Excel data. A folder that is a HTTPS folder. It's a SharePoint folder that I'm going to send to. This is going to be the name of the file I create up in that folder, which is the current file's XLSM converted to an XLSX. I have a formula, a VBA code that does that. So this is the target. This is the date that I'm publishing it, and I can add a password to this if I want so that nobody else can change the data up there. If I put a password on that file, it passwords the sheets, it doesn't affect Power BI's ability to pull data out of those sheets. It just means you can't change it. And this list is the list of the worksheets that I want to export. And they are here. So as PBI 01 is one of them, and there it is. And what it is, it's a pivot table. It's a pivot table. And I, in this code, which I'll show you in a second, look at the sheet called PBI 101, and I say, is there a pivot table on that sheet? Yes. All right. I'm going to grab everything in that pivot table, and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. All the data, not the headings, not the extra headings, just the data. I'm going to actually create a new blank spreadsheet, and I'm going to paste that data into that sheet, the first sheet. I'm going to rename it PBI 101, and I'm going to make a table out of that called table PBI 101. So then when I choose table data year, this data, it's going to then copy that into the same file. I'll have as many sheets in that file as I need of data that I'm exporting from this spreadsheet. So I'm cherry picking the data I want to actually publish out of this otherwise huge big spreadsheet, right? And I'm going to export it. So when I push this button here, publish to PBI, what it's doing is it's grabbing this data, creating this little file, and you'll see in a second that it's going to then publish it to SharePoint. Trust me, it will. Content type, getting list of available content types. Blah, blah, blah. Uploading. So now it's uploading the data, one file, and it sent it up there. And it says PBI update complete. So let's go and look at what this created. So I go like this, and I copy it, and I go File, Open. You notice what I've got here is a path-like URL. It says HTTPS, Personalogic Associates, SharePoint.com, that's my company, shared documents, Power BI, production, blah, 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 .xls. X. That's the path to the file. When I open it, it's going to open that file just as if it was a regular Excel file sitting. Ah, good, you're yawning. I'm good. That's good to see. I don't feel so bad about falling asleep in your session. Now, what it's doing is it's opening this file. And it has 4 sheets in it that I asked for. I said, create a table for the data year table, data for the report date field, which I can use this information in Power BI if I want. And this is PBI 01. But the biggest one here is info. It tells me every one of my sheets I create has the date it was created, who created it, and what the source file name is. And that gets published up with this file all the time. If I try to type something, it says it is password protected. Now, it is protected, but I didn't put a password, so it's not password protected. But if I had put a password, that password would protect these sheets, so you can't change them. If I go back to the original file, it means if I want to know what that password is, I got to open the original file and find what that password is. Therefore, you can have your own custom password. I don't care. So somebody won't change it. So it's going to this one site, and hopefully what you'll have is all your data will go to that one site or a subfolder of that site. And this is our file. So let's look at this file here. Production report modeloff.az. So now what I do is I open Power BI. Or no, I open Power BI desktop. And I go to a blank. You see there, it's asking for a URL again. Watch what happens when I go into Excel. I have, because I'm a nice guy, put the target name in that cell there. So now all I have to do is copy it, go back to this, and paste it into this spot right here. Paste. Okay, paste. Fine, that's what I want. There. So now the URL is of the target of the Excel file is pasted into here. I go OK. And what it'll do is it will suck up that file into Power BI Desktop, give me a list of what's available in there that I might want to include in my Power BI report. I'm not talking about all the pretty pictures and crap like that. All I'm talking about is the plumbing, getting data and getting it reliable. So there we go. Data year, table PI, BB01. I could bring in info. I'll bring that in too. I picked these 3 tables that were created by that little macro, and then I load them into it. And it'll suck them up and bring them into here. Now, I've been able to load 500,000 records, 700,000 records. You can do it this way, and it works fine. And it will refresh in a perfectly acceptable amount of time. Don't think it's because it's Excel, it only has to be a couple hundred records. It can be large. And remember something, remember how I said earlier, this isn't a query tool, it's an analytical tool, a reporting tool. Everything should be aggregated anyway. You pre-aggregate to the lowest level of granularity that you really need. That goes back to when I was a boy. When I was, how late do I go on this thing? Quarter past what?
You still have 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That was a very good answer. He's more efficient than you, Martin. All right. But anyway.
Glad that is on camera.
Yeah, and it's actually the world knows about it. No, you're doing fine. I got distracted and I forgot what I was going to talk about. It'll come back to me because I want to move forward on this. Christmas cookies? I was talking about Christmas cookies? No, that wasn't it. That didn't remind me of that. But anyway, what happens is I've got this data brought up into here, and I can do what I want with it now that I'm in here. So I can say, give me by mine, give me the year-to-date tons by mine. And I can leave it like this, or I can turn it into a chart. Like I said, I'm not as fascinated by the charts and stuff because I think that they're pretty straightforward, that all the work is in the plumbing. Now, maybe that's a weakness on my part, but without the plumbing, you got nothing. It's pretty pictures, that's all you got. So let's create this chart here. This chart shows me my total tons by mine for the year. Now, I've imported this from Excel. I go File, Save, and I create a PBIX file, which I'm going to call Zeist 01, whatever, I don't care. So at least I know what it's called. Now, I saved it locally. I haven't saved it to the web or anything because I'm just going to work on it locally. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to publish that. Everything I've done, I could have created dashboards, charts, reports, all the stuff you do. I'm going to publish this now to Power BI. Remember I said Power BI is where .com is where you publish, and Power BI Desktop is where you build this stuff. And I'm going to go here and say I want to publish it to the SharePoint folder, and it's on its way. Now, this is sort of interesting. Now I can open Zeist 01.pbix in. I can open it and look at it in PowerBI.com. Now you're saying, oh my gosh, this is complicated. It isn't complicated because you do the same thing over and over and over. Once you've done it 3 times, you just do it over and over and over and over again. But it's like I said, to figure out how to do it, it's you close your eye, put your hand behind your back, turn around 3 times, right? Oh, I knew that. It's intuitive. No, it's not intuitive. But once you know how to do it, it works. I love that. Almost done. That means they know it's slow when they put in something like that. That's funny. But anyway, here's my chart. And there we are. Now I'm up here. Now this is where it gets a little interesting. I have to now go and I can publish this. I can, people who are members of the SharePoint group can see this immediately. It can be added to a dashboard, whatever I want. But you know, I want to run this process again back in Excel because my data's changed. And I want my data to be refreshed in Power BI. How does that work? Well, I want the user to just be able to change the file and save it. And in fact, I can add code to this that every time you save the file, it automatically runs that button that I pushed, and it automatically pushes the latest version up. But how do I do that automatically? In order to do it unautomatically, I'd have to open it here in Power BI Desktop, refresh the data using this button, publish it again, and replace. So the user would have to know how to do that. That's not practical. So instead, I'm going to go here into Power BI Desktop. And watch this. I go down here. Here's my new Zeist 01, right? I'm going to refresh it now. I'm in the data set. Because I published this, the data set that's behind this chart is automatically published. But look at that. What have I got on the left there? What does that little rectangle tell me? It tells me it didn't refresh. Well, but you said that if I put it in SharePoint and I import it from SharePoint, I can refresh it. I know, but I didn't tell you how to make it so it can refresh. And in fact, all the documentation stops short of telling you really how you have to do it. There's no documentation other than stuff that I've written in my blog that tells you how to actually make it work. And that is a big failing, because anybody who tries to use SharePoint, it means that they're not refreshing. They're not using this. It's not happening. And here's how you do it. This is not for the faint of heart. It's not obvious. It took me a long time to figure this out. And in fact, I didn't figure it out. My friend Oscar at one of my clients, he said, oh yeah, we couldn't figure that out either. And I was in Seattle at Redmond, and I asked one of the Power BI developers, how do you do? Oh, he says, you go, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and then that was it. It was, like as if, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you understand this? Huh. So here's what I do. I go into schedule refresh. This is intuitive, right? I would have thought of that. Not. And I go to data source credentials. Look at, there was actually a sign there. What did it say? Your data source cannot be refreshed because those credentials are invalid, you moron. Please update your effing credentials and try again. Stupid, right? Oh, I knew that. So if I go edit credentials, now this is where it gets really exciting. What do I use what credential do I use? This is funny. When I click on this arrow, it doesn't work, by the way. Never has. They have an error in their click reaction. The arrow does not work. But if you click over to the left of the arrow, anywhere in here, it does come down. I'll say, well, if I used Windows, then I'd have Windows authentication. My Power BI would have to have a connection directly in. That ain't going to work. I use OAuth 2. You knew that. It was obvious, right? I use OAuth 2. Yeah, I mean, it's intuitive, right? It's anybody would know that. What? Then it's not even first choice. It's fourth choice, right? Yeah. Everybody out on the internet now has to go to the washroom. Now, once you've done that, you go sign in. OAuth 2 is the protocol for connections to a SharePoint site. And you pick which my SharePoint account I want to assign to this, which is Richard Moffat. And it says, okay, fine, you're good, you're cool. And now it's in there, and it will take a few seconds, and it's done. Now I can say, I want to keep my data up to date, and I want my frequency to be, it says daily, which I think is kind of amusing. It's not daily. If you don't say otherwise, it'll do it daily this hour. But I can go in here, I can pick my time zone, and I can add a time within that. So I can say refresh at 3, only 0 or 30 p.m. every day. And I can add another time, refresh at 4 This is pretty intuitive, isn't it? 4:30. And I can add up to 8 times in a day, which is better than, as in Canada, we say it's better than a kick in the ass with a frozen boot, right? That's what we say in Canada. I don't know what you guys say. Better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. That's another American line. It now will automatically refresh because I added that O off to my, and assigned it to my account. And now I'm ready. Yes. Yeah, because it's it had nothing to do with group. It had nothing to do with groups. Yes, it's actually now baked my account in. When I said edit my credentials, I've said use my credentials whenever you talk to the data. Yeah, that's right. But in my case, it's me, so I don't give a shit. So I'm just doing it with me, right? But you're right. You should log in as that service account, right? And only people who know the password to the service account should be able to do it. Then if that guy gets hit by a truck or leaves a company or dies, you're okay, right? You got it. That was a real good catch.
But you're setting it up. Yes.
I'm setting what?
This.
No, this is the browser. This is .com. This is. That's a real good question, isn't it? And the answer is, I don't know. Why not? Right. Now, here's a funny thing. Yesterday, when I was getting prepared for this, I just updated a new Power BI desktop, a new version. And guess what? You can now do this authentication part in Power BI desktop. You couldn't before I upgraded it a week ago. So they're gradually adding this stuff up. So if you do it in Power BI desktop, you can put these credentials in there, and I tested it, and it gets grandfathered up to powerbi.com. So that means you don't have, but you still have to do the scheduling here, right? So what the hell, right? And I don't care. I'm okay with this, but it's just not intuitive, right? It's not something anybody's going to figure out easily. But the other thing that's neat about this is now that I've done this, if I go refresh now, because I've authenticated it, I'm doing a manual refresh. There's a little circle, and then it'll just go black because it works. Because I can manually refresh it now. You see? Now it's gone. So it worked. It did refresh because I have the credentials in place, and now I'm happy. It means at 3:30, it's going to refresh again. At 4:30, it's going to refresh again. And it's going to do that till the cows come home, right? And all that the user has to do now, they don't have to call me every time they figure out how to do it. All they have to do is push this button at the end here, this button. But I've got that code mapped into this thing so that if I save this file, if I'm not mistaken, it will automatically do the publication to Power BI. Therefore, the user doesn't have to know what's going on. This is huge. And look what's happening here. When I go to 2014, this Excel file is querying a SQL Azure database in the cloud. And it's bringing in a year's data from a SQL function, which is based on 2 stored procedures that does a whole lot of machinations to massage the data on SQL to prepare it for use here, brings it in, and then that gets used as the source for those pivot tables, which then gets published up to SharePoint, which gets used by Power BI. It's flowing through, right? And the thing is that I've got there, it's done. I have 1 million records in the database. And here's now it says, now it's done. It didn't work. Where'd it go? Or is it still thinking? You know, I've always said here before, no matter what happens, act as if it was supposed to happen. Why isn't this working? This has worked 1,000 million times. This is the most standard piece of code I've ever written. And it's not the Power BI part. I'm talking about the let's see, refresh connections. Refresh connects, okay. Well, go on faith that that's what it does. Does that make sense, guys? Trust me, it works. So what's happening is it should have refreshed this. Okay. I'm going to close this and reopen it because I haven't changed it at all. Close and reopen. So what you've got then, and there goes my demo right out the crapper. In this case, when I change it to 2014 and I hit refresh, it should publish 2014 data instead of 2013 instead of 2012 data. And that gets published and that gets picked up from SharePoint into my Power BI and shows up in my charts. That's what I was going to demo. It's worked every time except now. Don't know why. It's a real demo. Shows that I'm a real loser. That's maddening. Gosh. But anyway, you're right. Thank you. It's a real demo. But this is a huge thing that you're looking at here, this ability, and nobody seems to know about this, right? That this works, that it actually, and you go through these steps. So in fact, if we go back to this, you'll see in a second, I'll come back to that. All right, here we go. This is one of those trick things. Did you ever hear about, I don't know if it's a, how do you describe it? An urban myth that there was a Cessna pilot who was flying and they got too high and they flamed out and the plane nosedived straight into the ground, right? This was quite a few years ago. And on the cockpit recorder that they found, as it went in to the ground, the pilot said to the co-pilot, "Point your toes, Joe. We're going in deep." I love that. That's the greatest. What a cool guy. Be an old military guy. Whether it's true, I don't care. So here, point your toes, everybody. We're going in deep. Right? Is that worth all that? Anyway, these are the moving parts of the Excel-based Power BI solution. These are the steps you follow, but you follow these steps every single time. It's exactly the same in every situation. So it's not the end of the world. But these are the steps. There are those, and these are available online. You guys can grab them. I will make sure that Martin makes them available to you. I'm going to take a chance. Is there one more? Yay! There it is. Right? These are the steps, which I'm not going to bore you with, that you go through to create a new version. And you create an Excel file. So let's go back and I'll show you. Okay, we're going to go in Excel, and we're going to, what time is it? 3:10? Actually, this is pretty good. I still got 5 minutes to do it. Okay, so let's try something here. Okay, receivables data. Let's try this. And all of this is available to you. This is a table. What can you do? Okay, here's a table, and it's already configured at a table, and the table is called table data. I don't care what it's called. Now I'm going to go to my website. Actually not my website, well, let's do it here. Start. Dick Moffat's spreadsheet sheet, right? Okay. This is the code that I've posted on my blog, which I'm going to steal here. It's not that much code. Just looks like a lot. And I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. I'm going to go back to my Excel file here. Receivables data. I'm going to go to Visual Basic. I'm going to insert a module. And I'm going to paste all this in. And then I'm going to compile it, make sure everything's good. Now I go to the top here. Now this code is called Power BI. And it runs through a whole sequence of stuff that I don't have a time to tell you. But this is the code. So I'm going to go back to the sheet here. And I'm going to run the macro called Power BI. It's done. What I've now done is create a sheet called PBI main. Here's my database, and I'm going to rename this sheet to database. And I'm going to grab the name of this. I'm going to paste it in here as the sheet that I want to, there, database. I'm going to grab my URL, which should be around somewhere. If I open this last file that I had here, I can steal the URL because I'm going to the same URL all the time. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to copy this to the clipboard. Are you getting all this? And I'm going to go back here and I'm going to paste my URL here. So now it says that and I'm going to save this file anywhere. Where the hell? I'm going to save it where I am. Actually, no, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go Dropbox. Don't you love Dropbox? My God, I couldn't live without Dropbox. Yeah, OneDrive's the same, but I've never been able to, I know, that's a good joke. I have never been able to get OneDrive to work properly, the syncing. Isn't that hilarious, right? Isn't that sad? But OneDrive is, or Dropbox is super easy. So let's go 01. Now I've saved this file, and now this is going to change here when I hit F9. The name of this file should change. There, you see how it says data01.xls? I save it again. As soon as I hit publish to Power BI, it is, now I'm in business. It's actually publishing this, creating my little file, copying the data in that, from that database sheet, publishing it to SharePoint, and there it is. You know that bit about testing it on the fly, doing it while I did it. And this code that I copied from my blog can be used in any file, any Excel file, anywhere, anytime. Like we've talked about taking this and converting it into an add-in, which may be a possibility. It might actually then charge you money for it. So there. But for now, it's free. So there you go. Anybody who knows can steal this for free. And that one piece of code which created this setup, when you run it the second time, it says, oh, okay, well, that's already set up, so I'm fine. So I'm just going to create the code. And I would walk you through the code if we had longer. So now if I go in here and I want to add this, this is what's really I like about this. I've already got the path to that file here. I've always got it. So I can go in here and I say get data web. And I can paste that into here. And now I'm doing the same procedure every frickin' time, over and over and over again. That once you've done it 5 times, it's second nature. Best practices, everybody in the organization does it the same way. Every model's made the same way. Somebody gets killed by a truck or wins a lottery, you know, hopefully win the lottery. Then somebody else can go in and pick up where they left off. What is wrong here? Let's try it again. Web contents failed. Interesting. So it shows the shared documents, Power BI, .xls. Isn't that interesting? This is going so good, you know? Sometimes I've run into situations where there's strange characters in here that it creates. Receivable data aggregated XLS. Okay, did it create it? Well, that is, turn it off. No, right, that's, works like a charm. What bothers me is they just upgraded Power BI Desktop, and if they broke this, I'm going to be beyond angry because I've been using this for 1.5 years like this, and if they've broken this capability, I don't know what I'm going to say. There's going to be another way around it, right? But Means I got to figure it out. But when I go to the web and I paste that in, okay, so let's try this. What if I try to bring in the original file rather than the 01 file? There. Interesting. So anyway, there's table database. So let's make believe this is the file that I created. And let's load it. It didn't find it. Excuse me, I'm burning here. Especially since it's 318. Let's go find it, eh? Okay, let's go. Boom. Personal Logic Associates team site. Where did I save that to again? To shared documents, Power BI, receivables data 01, right? Okay, so let's go back here. That's not what I want. That's not what I want. Okay, here we go. Power BI. I know I ran it last night and it worked. Trust me, really, I did. Power BI. Okay, let's change this. Let's do this again. Let's get rid of Power BI. And save it. And let's run it again. So you notice now it's going to save it one folder higher. It's running through the same thing. So all I'm doing is running the code again, right? And it's fast, right? It's fast. Now I'm going to copy this to the clipboard. Update complete. Copy. Get data. So the idea behind this is using Excel as the intermediary, you've got access to all your data sources behind the firewall. Still failed. What is it saying? Not found. Web contents failed to get contents. Data.xlx not found. Even though it found the other file that was in the same folder. Which means I think the problem may not be, what were you going to say? Yeah, let's go look here. If it ever showed up here, right? Yeah, well, yeah, of course. I mean, what do you think this is? You still blame Microsoft. Jeez. Of course. So it was receivables data 01. No, receivables data is there, but not receivable data 01. It never created it. Even though it said it did. That's why the error message, and that error message should say the file not found instead of an error like that, right? It says, come on, dummy, there is no file of that name. So why, if I run this so many times, would it not work this one time? Oh, all right. Actually, I'm pretty close to done. I'm almost ready to have a drink. Are we having drinks after this? Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. Let's go see again if it's here this time. So anyway, all those files that are in that folder were created using this same technique, by the way. So don't tell me it doesn't work. Yeah, I see what you mean. Go up to one higher level. Well, did I go back to, I didn't go Power BI, yeah. But it should have been there initially. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So let's, how do I go up? Oh, should, all documents, that'll work. List, no. What? Pardon? Oh, you just do that way. Okay, fine. My whole credibility's gone right down to crapper. Receivables data 02 is there. 01 is that's a different one. That's not the same file. It's not there. It's not there, man. Yeah. So anyway, work 99 points. You saw me do it before and it worked, and okay, fine. So bottom line is, it works. And the problem has nothing to do with Power BI, the fact that it didn't create it. And this code has been used by myself and other people, and it works, and I have no idea why. And I will figure it out if I had the time, but I don't have the time because we have another session. Well, trust me. And by the way, contact me if you want. If I can get it to work, I will reach out to you guys through Martin and tell you how. But here's the thing. By doing this, I've reached out, in this case, I've reached out to Azure, although that didn't work either, did it? Reached out to Azure, brought that data in, massaged it and transformed it and aggregated it in Excel, and then published that data, which didn't work, to SharePoint and then up into Power BI, right? So in desktop and then into Power BI. So this way you have complete control of the process that it over and over again. You create a set of best practices, you create a way to do this. You don't have to worry about data gateways, you don't have to worry about the data DBAs telling you can and cannot do stuff. You just do it yourself. And the other thing is, and somebody said earlier, you can actually integrate Excel data with other data you brought in using Power Pivot or Power Query, and you can blend them all together. Up in the cloud only, you don't have access to the Excel records, the Excel data on its own. So you end up with a very, very powerful tool. By getting the hook here, you end up with a very, very powerful solution that for some reason didn't work in my demo. And I will make it work. All right. And that's it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for. Yeah.